Are you ready?
Oh, I need to get it up.
No, that's fine.
May I have the email thing?
Oh, let me reply all to it and add you. What's your email address?
MCC.
MCC.
ULL.
ULL.
OUGH.
OUGH.
.hunter@gmail.
MCC ULLOGH.
OUGH.
Yes, OUGH. At gmail.com. Great. I've added you to the email chain. Alright, you all ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Is anybody not ready? Great. Observation 1 is inherency. Immigration restrictions currently restrict Native peoples' free passage on the U.S.-Mexican border. That's Marchbanks in 15. Under the border dividing the U.S.-Mexico, Native people are generally unable to employ the same rights as those who live along the Canadian border. The Treaty of Guadalupe, Hidalgo, and the Gadsden Purchase of 1853 separated tribal lands. Until recently, tribes such as the Tohono O'odham continued normal travel in their homelands as they had done prior to the formation of a foreign-imposed border. Until recently, over 2 million cars crossed the U.S.-Canada border on Mohawk lands every year, including tribal members who frequently traversed it to visit family, shop for groceries, or go to work. The O'odham are unhappy with enforcement activities and, like the Mohawks, understand it as an invasion of foreign culture. They are prevented from crossing the border, which makes it difficult to transport traditional foods and materials, visit family members, and sacred sites. The nation now must produce passports and border ID cards to enter the U.S. Involving tribes in the decision process was an afterthought. Thus, the plan. The United States federal government should substantially reduce its restrictions on illegal immigration of multinational indigenous peoples to the United States by replacing the blood quantum eligibility requirement defined in INA Section 289.1 with a provision devolving determinations of eligibility to tribal leaders and extending said rights to all North American tribes. Observation 2 is cultural genocide. Immigration restrictions impeding free passage have threatened the cultural survival of tribal identities. That's Tonra and 6. Indigenous border communities have come to the middle of shifting border policies and heavy enforcement into the O'odham, Yaqui, Kiku, and Kumeyaay, whose traditional borders are bisected by U.S.-Mexico border, have suffered. The border has either prevented tribal members from doing this or made it far too difficult. The situation poses a grave threat to the survival of tribes as distinct cultural entities. And blood quantum requirements for free passage rights are racially based in U.S. slavery and Jim Crow laws. That's Dennis in 15. Proving one's native ancestry is the crux qualifying for J Treaty rights to live in the U.S. under the J Treaty and the INA. Canadian members of the U.S. tribes must possess and prove at least 50% blood quantum. There are comfortable parallels to the one-drop rule in the USA cultural definition of race that's continued to be abused during the Jim Crow era. The colonial underpinnings of blood quantum laws results in fragmentation of individuals and tribes. And cultural genocide of Native American peoples has led to mass death through murder or the unintended consequences of deliberate cultural destruction. That's Native American net roots in 15. Cultural genocides expressed by Native Americans describe the deliberate destruction of Indian languages, religions, ways of dress and housing, and by the U.S. Cultural genocides led to the deaths of many American Indians either through deliberate murder as the intended or unintended consequences of deliberate destruction of cultures. And cultural genocide of Native peoples constitutes social death, rendering life meaningless. That's Brayon in 15. Genocide is two phrases: the destruction of the national pattern of the oppressed group, the imposition of the national pattern of the oppressor. Genocide is not simply mass murder. Card used the term social death for cultural genocide. The special evil of genocide lies in its infliction of not just physical death, but social death, producing a consequent meaninglessness of one's life and even of its termination. And blood quantum constitutes a racist ideology which leads to the extinction of Native peoples in North America. That's Schmidt in 11. Continued use of blood quantum has dire consequences. Blood quantum policies are little other than genocidal, which will ultimately end with the extinction of original native people of the original indigenous people of native North America. Eventually, Indians will be defined out of existence. Exclusivity is embedded in the racial paradigm of the colonial past. Exclusiveness is fundamental to the ideology of race that becomes broad barriers against the interaction between races and precludes any possibility of egalitarian relationships. And vote affirmative is an act against genocide. We have an ethical imperative to reject complacency. That's Vettelsten in 2K. The moral issues are not confined to the nexus of agent and victim. Every contemporary citizen cognizant of ongoing genocide counts as a bystander. Bystanders are persons possessing the potential to halt ongoing actions. The most passive bystander possesses the potential to cease being a mere onlooker. Responsibility for halting what is now unfolding must be seen to rest with the party literally witnessing the genocide that is taking place. Failure to act carries a message to both the agent and the sufferer. The action may proceed. Inaction here means complicity. Observation 3 is solvency. Native American organizations advocate the elimination of blood quantum restrictions on border passage. That's NCAI 6-3-18. The National Congress of American Indians does support efforts of northern and southern border tribes to address implementation of J Treaty provisions in Canada governing border crossing for all American Indian, tribal, and First Nation members, and removal of the 50% blood quantum requirement in the United States. And tribal citizenship granted by indigenous nations are the only acceptable way to determine tribal membership rather than a blood quantum requirement. That's NCAI 16. The NCAI is the oldest and largest organization of tribal governments. The Congress implemented the J Treaty with enactment of the INA. Current law therefore authorizes border security agents to ask tribal members to prove they have at least 50% Indian blood quantum, whereas reference to the blood quantum stems from the termination era where lawmakers sought to eradicate tribes. Subjecting tribal members to the language from the era stemming from the termination era is offensive and creates unnecessary tension at the border. Failing to recognize the right of tribal governments to determine membership is a direct attack on tribal sovereignty and the principles of self-determination. The NCAI urges Congress to quickly pass a technical amendment to the INA. And the definition of Section 289 is implemented by Congress for all North American tribes, and Congress solely has the authority to change it. That's Nichols in 2001. There is no single definition of Indian under U.S. federal law to aid in the evaluation of Section 289. A tribe is whatever Congress calls it. Congress treats Indian status as a derivative of their tribe status. Congress and the courts generally have been deferential to tribes to determine who may and who may not hold membership status in a tribe. Congress will formulate a definition of Indian, usually specific to the statute being passed. There's been a congressional indication of intent to extend the right of free movement to a group that traditionally did not inhabit lands now bifurcated by the U.S. and Mexico border. The concept of free movement is demonstrated by Congress' treatment of the Kickapoo. That's... Okay, I guess that's the end of the document. I think... Are we missing parts in this? Okay. I guess that's the end of the document. Now open for crossworks.
Good. First question. For the plain text, it specifically, so to clarify, it devolves the restriction down to a restriction controlled by Indian tribe leaders or native tribe leaders?
Well, currently the definition of in INA Section 289 for Native America, or it calls it Indian, but that definition currently is if you have at least 50% blood quantum, you qualify for the rights under the J Treaty, which is U.S. Canada.
I'm asking about the plain text. It devolves the restriction that is in the hands of the federal government and puts it in the hands of tribal leaders, correct?
It changes the definition to whatever tribal leaders say it is.
So
it lets tribal leaders determine their own membership.
The cultural genocide advantage?
Yes.
You cite this dentist card for how blood quantum requirements are based on U.S. slavery law, specifically in the context of how does the act have a reverse causal relationship with the Jim Crow legacy?
The act eliminates the Section 289.1, which uses the blood quantum law to determine membership in tribes. We argue that a cultural definition of race is inherently problematic, and by getting rid of that, we solve for this against Native Americans.
So essentially, your argument is that this law is traced in sort of cultural and racist heritage. I understand that aspect. Specifically in the context of your cultural genocide impacts, how does that stance by the federal government ultimately resolve the commodification of native culture, such as white people wearing headdresses and things like that?
So how does the getting rid of the one-drop rules solve for like cultural aspects, is what you're asking?
Yes, sure.
So there isn't a 100% chance of spillover, but we argue that the affirmative is an example of negative state action, getting rid of the blood quantum law, which is bad according to our dentist card.
Second, clarification. Is this when I see a contextual, is this app contextual to U.S.-Canada borders or U.S.-Mexico borders?
Both.
Both? Okay. Your Vetstone card, that just presumes that it is taking a full stance against sort of cultural genocide that can be actively reduced. How does merely taking a stance against it, even when other things sort of fill in to cause cultural genocide, mean that the judge has an ethical reason to vote negative?
Right, it's not like we're just changing this policy that has no effect. Our Marchbank's card talks about how right now the Tohono O'odham tribe is prevented from passing the border to visit family members, go to sacred sites, because they don't qualify under the blood quantum definition. We get rid of that definition and we materially help these people
all of this is
through negative state action.
All your cultural genocide arguments are contextual to the enforcement of blood quantums.
It's not... Could you rephrase it?
It's not.
That's fine. I'll just send it out. Jeez, my brain's not working. I'll get it in a second.
Me neither.
It's just this, right?
Yes.
Okay. Alright, it should be sent.
How many off?
The order will be 7 off, and then framing, and then case.
Hunter, can you hit start on tablet?
Oh, yeah.
Let me duplicate the template for these to get 7 off. 7 off, what was the order of case?
Framing, and then the advantage.
You can just flow it straight down on the advantage, basically.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me create a new sheet.
I'm still doing that.
Oh, you want me to start it?
No, I got it.
Let me... Wait first. I still have something.
Just let me know when you're ready.
Okay, I will let you know. You have...
Yeah, I got it.
Can you save them in the Dropbox?
Yeah, sure.
I know last round I had the same problem. I don't know what it is. I just have not been able to receive emails just from email.
I think Carrington just didn't come to the tournament because HR's not the meeting.
Huh.
That's weird. I just said it was weird.
I say
Round 2 of St. Mark's?
Yeah.
Okay. 1 in Quantum.
Yep.
You all good?
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry.
Alright. You good, Hunter?
First off, topicality, interpretation, only quotas and admissibility requirements or restrictions. Task off the 16 restrictions on legal immigration quotas. People that Congress has determined should not be allowed. Violation, the act doesn't raise quotas or eliminate admissibility requirements. The act, 2, the act is not a net reduction on restrictions. They swap one regulation for another. The reasons prefer one when a certain infinite number of regulations on immigration restrictions are finite and create predictable literature-based. 2, ground. Reducing regulations on immigration allows the act to spike out of the brain drain dissent visa trade-off and econ dissent because they don't have to defend an increase in immigration, especially when the act just replaces it and doesn't have a net reduction. T is a voter for education and fairness. Second off is TLPR, interpretation. Legal immigration is LPR status. Chang. All in 4, legal immigration is defined as person who is lawfully admitted for permanent residence in the United States. The Immigration Act of 1990, which is enforced, establishes limits for family spousal preferences, employment-based preferences, and diversity immigrants. Net other immigration is defined as flow of persons who do not meet the definition of legal immigration. Violation. Booz and McLaughlin concedes their evidence concedes that the plan allows natives to not document as LPR, explodes limits and destroys native ground. Temporary migration increases the native research report, and there are hundreds of temporary visas. But best core generics like brain drain, parole counterpart visa trade-off makes links impossible to win. It's impossible to generate link offense when they don't identify as legal immigrants and natives across the border. In the status quo, predictable limits, they justify any act that allows movement of people. Makes research impossible. And T is a voting issue, tells the neg what they shouldn't and should have to be prepared to debate. Go on to next off is the K. U.S. immigration policies intrinsically tied to the nation of borders makes violence inevitable. Draft for and for immigrants by over views is basically by one country. The discourse of immigration became chaotic. The second fault line between those who came and those who came to the United States. The United States came. The Native American tribes were necessary defeated and subjugated to begin. Immigrants and occupied the United States moved on to dislocated on the Mexican border was arbitrary line of demarcation device political military relations. The movement is from a legal standpoint across border migration. Reality is internal migration within a territory and political military frontier and effective barriers. The movement would generate social havoc as the U.S. goal is to create orderly migration policies that cannot be done social policy dealing with the complex issues have wildly unexpected consequences. Geographic reality creates social, political, social, economic, and military realities, driving the realities of geopolitics and never be able to read the United States is not prepared to do any of these things in the United States and never prepared to do to ineffectiveness. And capitalism is the root cause of the impact left unaddressed. It will cause extinction. Robinson. In 16, leads to manage to turn more social inequality into opportunities for capital, entertainment, social anxiety, and channels towards capable communities. So the systems past the ecological limits we have reached. We have reached. We are acidifying the oceans that raises undermines the air conditions, like ecological dimensions of global crisis cannot be understated. Given the capitalist impulse to accumulate profit is difficult to imagine the viral economy resolved in the capitalist system. The capitalism desensitizes the prison industrial complex. Immigrant repression as the capitalist system stops expanding outwards. Enters the crisis faces collapse with the limits to expansion comes a return to militarized accumulation, making wars of endless destruction. How we interpret the global crisis vital or survival may depend on it. And the alternative endorses a strategy to engage withdrawal, mass desertion from neoliberal ideologies and institutions that demand global freedom of movement, greater, and for the most effective way of opposing capitalism, engage with withdrawal. That's the defection is a great new force community. So we wait for the guys' decision of founding new committees, but the promises of exception of the revolutionary act cannot be destroyed, can be diverted from the gradually deprived of substance existing. The apparatus will be reduced as substance pulled out from international institutions into evolution to local self-governance and neoliberal states move forward to the feudals and interstructionality spaces open up. Fourth off is the skip the fourth off.
Yeah.
The next off is the counterplan text. The United States executive should not enforce the blood quantum restrictive solves the internal link. The Marchbank evidence in the 1AC is about disappointment with enforcement, which is their internal link. The counterplan solves executive gets total discretion. Posner. In 14, the executive branch spends a lot of time not enforcing. The executive has no choice but to make a list of priorities. Nearly all this non-enforcement takes place within political acquiescence. Once in a while, Congress can place with it. The president has no obligation to listen. The president has a right to use his own enforcement powers. Next off is the midterms decided as well in the House and had the most specific polling. Immigration is important. Clement involves 10-9 likely voters. 69 battlegrounds. House districts preferred the candidates worried about. Times Republicans when we're driving Democrats more battlegrounds. Democrats need about fewer than half the battlegrounds. GOP strategies pessimistic about the House new poll. Difference from generic questions to cookies to dynamic regular updates. Every different sampling interviewing approach Republicans need a national Trump approval rating of at least 45%. The current 40s in battlegrounds is trouble for the GOP. Extremely important. 50% saying immigration among those who cite judicial nominations extremely important. 50% and 40% Republican and AF looks at the script. Immigration policies are popular with voters for body and con. And 61% supporting allows immigrants to obtain permanent residence status through the work for the U.S. business. The Trump administration has targeted legal immigration. The immigration good for the country. People should be allowed to come in with employment-based green cards. And Democratic gains in the midterm key to constrain Trump's foreign policy. Can close 17 without checks on Trump's instincts and inclination. The man is granted full reign over the global affair. There are no judicial checks that leaves the power of subpoena budget to decide powers of war. Republicans representatives are likely to grant the president unbridled foreign policy power. This week presents a Democratic sweep. Congress will make sure administration bad actors are investigated foreign policy. Go on funded military actions. They're constraining partisan appointments languish and unchecked for Trump foreign policy goes nuclear. Wagner. And 17 Trump's ad hoc foreign policy led to the most famous presidents instigate assaulted our allies, voted our adversaries, inspired American leadership. He could well do it because the catastrophic war with the nation, nuclear power trade war with China will be an obstacle to diplomatic efforts. Unless China's support in dealing with North Korea, Trump is involved in our relationship with Russia's spiritual harm to our country and the decline of America's moral authority. This is an invitation to adversaries to test him and to our friends to show us to even ignore him. Next off is the wall said no border wall now, Brenton. And ever in 18, Trump is frustrated with Congress failure to fund the wall. Trump needs 60 votes in the Senate. Most Democrats supported the wall funding in exchange for citizenship are unlikely to agree to such a large sum anytime soon. Absent border immigration reform and immigration bipartisan will require the wall to pass presser. 18, Trump made a great concession in offering the pass citizenship. However, he insisted on the wall. He's willing to make a bipartisan compromise. Like James Bond, who's done real policy making ideas that each other must give up certain ideas. Legislature Trump said the stage for great national compromise. We will begin to build the wall and we will give pass citizenship. That's bipartisan compromise. And the border wall tanks U.S.-Mexico cooperation over water. Philip and Brown. And 17, the wall may sour U.S.-Mexico environmental security cooperation will result in significant damage as far as poison U.S.-Mexico relations. You could prevent the negotiation of water sharing areas that are critical to the environment as well as water security and farming. U.S.-Mexico cooperation of the Rio Grande and Colorado service is exceptional. This kind of cooperation now risk U.S. farmers along with the Rio Grande will be under severe threat of losing their livelihoods and water scarcity causes global wars. Hartley and 17, the state of security is more precarious for alliances, terrorism, and unavoidable turn by governments contributed to the atmosphere isolation, physical security required collaboration in the world of water security should be regarded as for the safety and security of the world's major military powers. Regional skirmishes have the potential to become an international crisis. Water scarcity and degradation have both direct and indirect impact destabilized countries. Go on to case framing extinction outweighs Plummer. In 15, whatever moral view we have to this important view, risk it begins are limited by catastrophe. Should all agree to save the world. There's a tendency to assume it is irrelevant non-consequences that is huge to take all ethical actions worth are to take consequences to account. Manually possible versions of virtue ethics must be conserved with promoting the good from a partial point of view, even if we are 100% sure that the well-being of future people's matters. Reducing existential risk is the most important thing in the world. Even if things did not go well, I am optimistic they will for our descendants and default to the burden of rejoinder.
Skip that. Go to case.
Go to case proper.
Yeah.
Framing issue. They need to when there's no cause and the AF has no internal link. Otherwise, they don't get access to any of their ethics claims. All the framing evidence assumes there's substantive action against native genocide and vote, negative presumption, blood quantums aren't enforced in the status quo. Yablon and Zug. And 8, right? The free passage statute still requirement that the person has 50% blood quantum level does not necessarily prevent Canadian Indians with less Indian blood from exercising right. Canada does not keep blood quantum races as an affirmative statement or act from either the Canadian Department of Indian Affairs or from a person's tribal organization. Is sufficient in all cost to erase your DAP and other land grab policies mean that indigenous decline is inevitable, and their Nichols evidence just says there was one past suggestion for Congress. That doesn't mean Congress has all authority over the concept, and their AF it doesn't resolve the issues of native identity without government enforcement. Nativeness gets defined racially, which uniquely excludes black natives. Freedmen prove Musicani in 13 tribalized on federal definition to qualify for aid and eligibility for programs. These solutions detract from tribal sovereignty and limitation of self-determination, so ensuring racial justice and fairness is freedmen are being deprived of our right to receive legitimate claim that solely around account of the race. This autonomy should not extend to so far as the promoting racist policies and outcomes of federal involvement is necessary. The controversy starts a microcosm struggle for balance between tribal sovereignty and federal oversight. Mark the card. No, I shall finish. Tribal sovereignty does not justify racist policies. All the current legal avenues available for the federal government and its executive agency would not adequately address the freedmen's grievances or resolve the greater problems of fairly defining native identity. Not only must the federal government get involved in this, must redefine tribal membership in non-racial terms, which should have the effect of allowing and encouraging native tribes to do the same. Will not be able to practice the same paradigmatic shift occurs. The controversies can truly be resolved or prevented, and there's no internal link. Changing blood quantums requirement doesn't mean the U.S. starts addressing racism. Your hydropreme evidence doesn't mention quantums at all. It's just about racism at large. You'll solve your impact. I'm ready for cross 6.
Alright, ready?
Yeah.
Okay. What app would be topical under both of your topicality violations?
Sure, an app that increases quotas on
like an example.
I mean, like, so any of the employment-based visas, diversity visas, family-based immigration.
Employment-based visas, aren't those a different category from LPR?
No, EB2 and EB3 and EB4 and EB5 and EB1, like EB1 through 5 are all LPR status visas. They all have different apps you can read. Also, there's like family-based immigration. There's plenty of apps you can do with that.
Sure. Why isn't INA Section 289.1 a qualitative restriction on legal immigration or ground of inadmissibility?
Sure. Well, we make 2 arguments here. One is that it's not a restriction because it's a regulation on like what requirements are necessary. Second, the next argument on this is that there's not a reduction in restrictions because the app just replaces a requirement with another requirement. It gets rid of the 50% and changes it to a native tribal recognition requirement, which isn't a reduction.
Sure. Okay.
Which means that there's no qualitative restriction because you keep it the same. It just changes.
Sure. So we're extra topical is what you're saying?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. What is this K?
It's saying that like immigration is necessitated on neoliberal concepts of borders.
What's the internal link from borders to capitalism?
Sure, borders allow countries to isolate which workers they want, deem who's worthy to come into the country, assign value to immigrants, etc.
Where does our plan uniquely link to employment and immigration?
I mean, it's not just in the context of employment immigration. Sure, but demarcation of bodies as they cross the border in itself is
sure, but where's that internal link to capitalism? From like, I guess where is never mind actually. How does the executive counterplan not link to midterms?
Because Trump can just do he doesn't have to listen to anybody.
Posner isolates that there are several laws that the executive doesn't always is constantly not enforcing. All of this will just fly under the
also, the midterms decide is about congressional House votes, not about what Trump does, which means that it wouldn't trade off.
All right. So INA 289 defines what it means to be a member of a tribe. If we eliminate this restriction, then then there is nothing restricting this law to just tribes. So why wouldn't there be immense backlash when literally anybody can immigrate to or from Mexico, regardless of whether they're made part of a tribe or not? Because now this law that applied to Native Americans now applies to every U.S.
The quantum rule is still in the context of Native Americans. Second, we would argue that it still doesn't.
Yes, it is. You stop enforcing that. Yeah, so then what do you use in place of that?
Second, we've turned self-determination in the sense that it creates more racism.
No, but how do you stop everybody from being able to use it when you get rid of the one thing that restricts it to Native Americans?
Because there are other federal requirements that matter, like bill solve.
Sure. Okay. Do you need prep?
Yes.
8 minutes starting now.
The executive counterpart, to get rid of that, would apply to everybody everywhere that wanted to immigrate.
What do you mean interesting?
If you don't solve something, it's horse shit. I'll hold on. No, okay. Oh, forget that. Yeah, you do. What do you mean actually? Don't worry about it. The other two cheating. It's not complicated. They also like. No, it's good. Okay.
Sent. No, just loaded but not sent. Yes, that's the end. Order will be TLPR, non-enforcement, and the case.
What's the order of case?
What? It'll just be the case debate proper.
Can you save it to Dropbox? Cause like it's.
I sent it just now.
I know. I don't know why, but I'm just getting emails from with speech box. Like I've been getting emails from the school, just not from competitors, and I have no clue why.
Just tell me when you're ready.
Okay.
Can you? Are you good?
No, I'm not. I'm waiting for the
Oh,
save
okay.
on the Dropbox because I can't open it. For some reason, emails just aren't showing up.
Okay.
So it's the two T arguments, the counterplay.
It's just TLPR. If I can get to T restriction, I will put that at the bottom.
2 and C. Right. I have it.
And counterplan K case.
It's T counterplan case.
Good?
Yep.
TLPR, on the weekly debate, extend our interpretation that topical apps must reduce restrictions on access to green cards and LPR violation. Booz and McCloskey, the last policy advocate that they read, Booz and McCloskey concedes that the plan allows natives to not document themselves as LPR while crossing the border. This proves that this is the cross of the violation. That also proves that they don't meet their area counter interpretation, which is a game breaking, which means you should vote negative right now, because if they don't meet their counter interpretation, it's a question of if we want to risk of if they don't meet their counter counter-interpretation either. That means that it's so wholly on top of it, you should definitively vote a negative because they can't solve they can't solve any of our offense. First, our interpretation, the counter-interpretation proper. Our interpretation is better for education and fairness. First is predictable limits. LPR is a stasis point. Their counter-interpretation justifies H2A visas, TN visas, H1C visas, F1 visas, which slows the neg research rate. This corrects clash because absent limits the neg can't prepare a strategy against all possible apps. Second is ground by beating non-agreed temporary visas. They can spike out of brain drain, wages, trade-off, and parole temporary counterplans. These are the only reliable core generics on the topic. The app forces neg to research off against every single possible visa. Their only standard that they have for the counter-interpretation is ground. But however, first the argument is that limits precedes ground. Ultimately, we have to determine what the extent of the literature base is to determine what generics will actually apply to all the affirmatives. They have conceded the limits is on the 2AC, which means that you should give us full weight because they've conceded that their counter-interpretation does not solve limits. Second is that clause 6 is pretty damning on this question. They just conceded that apps such as vacation and tourism are topical under their interpretation. There's no negative ground that is viable against these types of affirmatives, which proves that the teams will have a competitive incentive to run these types of affirmatives, which rejects clash. Clash is the only intrinsic impact to debate because absent clash debates turn into two-sided monologues where both teams are just ranting at each other and ultimately there's no disagreement. Debate is the only, clash is the only intrinsic good of debate. That also answers their RBI. RBI proper. First, there's no link to this argument. Switch that debate. It solves all of their discussion arguments. You can read settler colonialism as a critique on this topic, especially because all the linked literature base is way better than any of the evidence the 1AC ever reads. The second is that fairness only outweighs the only impact that's intrinsic to debate. There's no shaping of subjectivity that occurs in debate. The only thing that matters is how is the means by which we get the ballot. I'll answer their reasonability debate here. Reasonability is bad for debate. One, inserts judge bias. They reasonably allows the judge to influence the scope of the topic based on their own opinion. T should be decided based on whose interpretation creates the best mind. Second, collapse upon itself. In order to determine what is reasonable, we determine what is unreasonable, which returns back to competing interpretation. 3, the app is unreasonable. 1, we've already proven why they don't meet their own counter-interpretation. Second is that we already said a fairly broad and predictable app literature base. We've isolated family visas, diversity visas, and EB visas, examples of LPR. Any app outside of that base should be excluded on the basis that it skews the debate. It skews the debate. Non-enforcement. First, the overview. The counterplan solves the case and mandates that the United States executive would stop enforcing the blood quantum restrictions. That's sufficient to solve the app. And empirics prove non-enforcement grants some protection without granting full status. Eagly 10. There's a long history of pedals rules and immigration law that forgive entry, reference and ideology that those who come should be treated based on the ties that they form. Immigration law also allows undocumented market jurisdictions as the current system has been described as a substitute for expanded legal immigration because it allows the government to retain discretion, enforcement power, providing few protections, and the permutation links to the benefit. First, it's under the radar. One NC poster says that the executive constantly doesn't enforce law, proves that the counterplan will also not be seen by the public. Second is they can't capitalize. Trump would either ignore or intentionally hide the non-enforcement so he can save face with his base, which means that this won't become an issue in the midterms. The perm to the counterplan. There's a few arguments. First, it severs Congress. That was isolated and cross-sex. That's their key agent here. Then second, it severs reduce. Reduce means it makes smaller. Oxford dictionaries. Oxford dictionary, reduce means it makes smaller and less an amount. And third is resolve means to be for a dictionary 17. For affirmative purpose or intent, the counterplan is not a reduction of restrictions because it doesn't remove the restrictions, it just doesn't enforce them. Severance is a voting issue to excuse negative strategy. If the app can change what if the 2AC gets the power to change what the app is, that means the negative will never get to decide how they should structure the ball. Okay, you say Congress is key. Congress is not key. Your evidence that you refer to says that they only get to determine what is a native. None of the impact evidence that you isolate in the 1AC is predicated around determining what is a native, which means that it is all predicated around the destruction of native culture, which is based on the enforcement of blood quantums. Only the counterplan would solve that because it means that it doesn't get enforced. The counterplan links with politics. That is false. You can cross-apply my answer to the permutation here. It all would fly under the radar. They say counterplan wrecks separation of power. No link. The first no link. The poster evidence I said that the executive constantly is the one that gets full discretion over which laws to enforce because Congress outlaws a bunch of stuff all the time at the end of the day, but Congress ultimately acquiesces to the executive interpretation of what they decide to enforce. Second is there's no impact articulated to this in the 2AC. Don't let the 1AR stand up and articulate it. The second, the last argument, the counterplan is sent to everyone. This is not started. This is literally a fragment at the end of the 2AC. Do not let the 1AR extrapolate over what this means because there's no impact to this case properly. First, I'll extend the framing issue that they should have to prove that there's the counterplan that the act ultimately resolves all issues of native sovereignty and native cultural genocide. If you prove several alternative causes, that means that you should weigh negative. They don't get access to any of their ethical framing because all of their ethical framing evidence assumes that there's a substantive action against cultural genocide. If we prove that continues in the status quo, then there's no reason why you should vote affirmative. First, I'll extend there's multiple all causes to. There's multiple all causes to the native sovereignty in the U.S. DAPL and empirics proof Kumar 16. Native Americans from 280 tribes across the country have come to protest the Dakota Access Pipeline, land grabs as old as civilization itself. The Homestead Act encouraged settlers to properties such as states such as Kansas and Nebraska, but it also led settlers to pursue through lines to native tribes and deplete resources. The discovery of gold and black hills and promoted peace policies back at it is a sad reflection of the moral cesspool into which created grand administration and itself. That the persons of real cooperation with the War Department and the Bureau of Indian Affairs that were involved in most of the treachery ever contemplated by the government against the Plains Indians. Also, they have not answered the fact that this cultural commodification can continue to status quo. White people can wear headdresses which would lead to the collapse of native indigeneity because it waters down that culture. This is another alternative cause that they have not answered. The second argument, the next argument I'll extend is that the not blood quantums are not enforcing the status quo. One NC evidence isolates that give her as an example of a Canadian Indian says that the Canadian Indians are still allowed to cross through the U.S.-Canada border. This would also apply to the U.S.-Mexico border. This is double blind. Either the counterplan solves the entirety of the case, or they need to counterplan, or it's not enforced now, which means that the act is not inherent. The second argument, the last argument I'll extend is the Mushanki evidence. It's largely mishandled. It says that tribal leaders would the federal definitions of what constitutes an Indian are necessary because it resolves the exclusion of black Indians. Specifically, the Mushanki evidence isolates the Cherokee freedmen were deprived of the right to which they can claim indigeneity because of their race. So the tribal leaders decided to exclude them. Their argument back to this is that they only devolve authority down to tribal leaders. This is what our link evidence. This is what the cross of the argument is that tribal leaders will ultimately exclude black Indians because they are considered as not Indian enough, and this would ultimately deprive black Indians of their right to claim indigenous heritage. That is another reason, another reenactment of settler colonialism that they attempt to, as a recreation of settler colonialism because certain bodies are excluded, which is the crux of their settler colonialism impact argument. It also proves that the act can't solve.
Okay, so first for your blood quantums aren't being enforced in the status quo. That card is only talking about Canada. How does that have to do with the U.S.-Mexican border?
Sure. That is considering both the Canada and the U.S. are cooperating on this issue, and they basically allowed the Canadian Indians to travel throughout the border. Even if you're correct that it is still being enforced now, the Yablon and Zug evidence ultimately proves a counterplan solves the act because it cites an empirical example of how Canadian Indians can cross the border if this restriction is not enforced. But
it says Canada does not keep blood quantum records. It has nothing to do with the U.S. cooperating with that.
Sure, that ultimately proves the thesis of why non-enforcement solves. If you don't enforce a blood quantum restriction, that allows them to pass through the borders freely.
What the evidence is saying is that the status quo still allows natives that are living in under the borders of the United States to go to Canada. Which
it says that it only allows Canadian-born Native Americans who are in Canada now to cross into the U.S. It has nothing to do with Native Americans in the U.S. crossing into Canada, and it has absolutely nothing to do with Mexico and the U.S.
I disagree with that characterization. Second, even if you are right about how you are characterizing the Yablon and Zug evidence, that only proves that the counterplan can solve. If you're right that it's about Canada, how it enforces restrictions, if the U.S. does the same thing by not enforcing blood quantums, that still allows the free passage of Native Americans in and through the U.S. and Canada and the U.S. and Mexico, which is only in turn linked to cultural genocide.
Right, but what guarantees reciprocity from Mexico under that interpretation? Because that doesn't show that
then
Mexico...
the act doesn't solve either. Unless you're fiating that Mexico somehow gets rid of its blood quantum requirements, then,
No, it's how natives are identified. They're identified in Mexico with the same IDs.
So I'm still confused as to what that has to do with the U.S. choosing not to enforce blood quantums. It just allows them to pass through and forth, back and forth. If you're correct that Mexico is a restriction on the free passage, then that proves that is a terminal solvency deficit to the act because that proves that Mexico is the one that will block
No,
50
I think you
passes in
misunderstand.
neighboring
What I
deals.
was saying was the IDs that show if you're like part of an indigenous group, the indicators on those are made from the definition in section 289. How do you know that Mexico would stop enforcing its laws? Because in the status quo, Mexico looks at these IDs, and that native identity right now is what Mexico looks at.
I'm concerned. I'm confused on why why Mexico would be following the U.S. Immigration and Naturalization Act.
They're
Mexico
not.
has
It's
its own
that-
immigration laws. If they have their own IDs that they need, and natives don't have those IDs.
You haven't like read any evidence that says this is the case. Like you're just asserting claims about how the Mexican policies work.
Like, I'm
Okay.
fundamentally confused on this question.
It's sent. Everybody ready for an order? Alright, Neolib, horse trade, midterms, case. And the case is just going to be the framing and stuff.
Repeat that order.
The critique, the horse trade dissent, midterms, and then framing.
Okay, well, midterms.
Yep.
Midterms. No.
Alright, just let me know when y'all are ready.
I got it. So it's K wall midterms training.
Yep.
Okay. Thanks.
Is anybody not ready? Alright.
Neil, we'll concede the permutation just to contest the competition. We're not going for it. Their communism argument, they say reject the team. It's just a reason to reject the argument at best. And Crossex was pretty embarrassing on this. I don't really need to go into this because we basically disproved like any offense like exists here. Horse trade. We'll concede that other horse trades mean it's not unique. They don't have any offense on this page. We're go to the midterms to set. Unchecked, Trump is a conflict magnifier every day, and understanding Trump gets more and more dangerous. He's told our allies push for containment strategies with Russia, China, and the Middle East. All risk escalating into a nuclear conflict when one of these powers inevitably tests retaliates them. Only bureaucratic checks solve, defer, negate, outweighs, to try or die for dumb victory. Trump is already becoming emboldened and turning the tides as quick, uniquely key outweighs on time frame because the after impacts have empirically not escalated or too far out and outweigh on magnitude. Trump's rationality goes our way. In a turns case, the Democratic Congress solves the Af Nilsson and 18 migrants best mobilized with the Democrats working against this arts war for immigration reform. The level of commitment to look at it took a while, but we were there. The momentum and pressure will have to come from the Democratic voters themselves, and Trump will sign on. Rubin and 18 Trump will be a better president with the Democratic Congress, and Trump will get to immigration deals. Certainly would get on re-electing Republicans into majorities in both houses. It's a green light for Trump to double down. And the unique debate, it goes in our favor. Democrats have momentum towards regaining Republican-held seats, but 10 Democrat seats are in the race when Trump won, which makes every Dem advantage uniquely key. That's the one to see evidence. We only need to win that we flip the houses to win. Our polling is better. The Cook system uses dynamic analysis and interviews to get accurate assumptions. All of it, all of our evidence indicates that it's slightly Democrat lead, which means that Trump's stance on immigration is a key factor motivating Democrats. Their uniqueness evidence is awful. It cites zero polling data, just as Republican approval is doing okay in the base matters. We'll win. Moderates are key, and our evidence assumes their only warrant, which is the approval rating. That's one and see number one. And Dems are ahead. Dems are ahead. I don't need to read any. Dems are ahead. Generic ballot, Trump approval rating proved. Kilgore. In 18, the Democratic generic ballot is 8%. The rebound has been quick. These are sizable gains in House seats and not the control. History shows that the party not controlling the White House making gains in job approvals where it was 3 months ago. The numbers are reverting to mean because of lesser economic news abatement in North Korea and the border. In the link debate, we have 3 links to the first is flip-flops. Every political move close to the election becomes much more significant in people's decisions. Neither party wants to push any major policy forward to safeguard their candidates and seats during the lame duck. The plan comes in during a quiet period that allows Trump to improve his image and immigration stance, gaining swing votes. The second is Democratic base sits out. Midterms, you typically get little voting participation by either party, which is why managing to get the base to turn out is essential. Even if swing voters don't care about the immigration policies, by Trump convince Dem voters to sit out and allow the GOP to maintain their seats as they won't perceive a threat to the progressive immigration agenda. And third is the native link. They see Trumpian and Republican policies is good for them, and they turn out Republican. Natives are a key voting bloc. Dennis Warden, in 14 states with high concentration of native voters, the impact of elections is palpable. Natives have developed their economies and register voters and engage more fully in political policy practices. In some Western states, the native voter can decide the outcome of election. More campaigns the party operators understand the importance of the native vote. They say Trump can't implement his agenda. One, the Dem wave centralizes the Republican Party around blocking Democratic policies, incentivizes Trump to lash out. Second, their evidence doesn't assume retaliation is Dem control, which is the unique instance of Trump lash out. Their evidence is old and doesn't assume the current political climate, which means you should default F. Framing. The 2AC wasn't sufficient on this argument. It was a 5-second extension. Just saying the status quo violence should be evaluated because it causes genocide isn't responsive. Even if you evaluate their impacts, weighed against extinction, they can see to future generations, meaning ignoring extinction risks killing trillions of people in future generations, which turns all their ethics arguments because it doesn't give people the right to even be born. Every life has an equal priceless value. Ergo, it is unethical to try and save dignity of two people at the price of killing one, which means the consequentialism outweighs moral purity cannot become before unintended consequences. It political responsibility to focus solely on moral purity, which proves the thesis of our returns case arguments. If we win a turns case argument, that means you should evaluate the impacts of the dissent as well, because the unintended consequences of the act cause more harm to the people the act is trying to help, and it is unethical to assume that our impacts are zero risk, because the burden of the act to prove that they are zero impact. If we win, the saving lives comes first. There's a risk that the plan causes a mass loss of life. You vote negative, and saving the greatest number of lives should be your first ethical priority. Comiskey. In 96, 82% denied with dignity. You cannot wait for killing them. This is not justified on deontological conclusions. Dignity cannot be summed up. Each is right. I have good reason to say is save as many as I can. Consequentialism is key. Absolutism destroys political responsibility at the price of moral purity. Isaac, and two, unyielding concern with moral goodness and undercuts political responsibility, fails to see the virtue of one's intentions, does not ensure what one intends, fails to see the world, the real violence, moral purity, simplicity, and justice, politics. It's much about unintended consequences of morals and about intentions, about the pursuit of good that generates evil, more absolutism, and alienates those who are not true believers to be politically responsible against the world. To consider the choice it presents. The 2AC is too light on this question. The 2AC just says that status quo violence is first because of genocide. If we were in a 1% risk of the link, like we get to weigh the impacts because it's just a question of weighing extinction versus genocide. They didn't have any like counterclaims to why extinction outweighs, which means you default neg on future generations. Is that fine?
Yeah.
Okay.
We have 352 starting now.
Nations like the Tohono O'odham members of the Iroquois Confederacy suffer from a lack of passage on their own tribal lands. They're unable to visit family members, go to traditional foods, and visit sacred sites, which is a form of cultural genocide according to our Rayon card and our Marchbanks card. Current restrictions on indigenous people destroys their culture and perpetuates a system where they're defined out of existence. Since first settlement, native population has been dropped from 25 to 30 million down to 3 million. This not only constitutes social death with our brand card, it leads to actual death through consequences and structural violence. They say we have to solve for every single alt cause. However, you should extend our Vedelson card that it cannot just be a bystander and say, oh, well, genocide's already happening, so we shouldn't do anything to try and stop it. No, you have an ethical obligation to reject genocide and to stand up for it, or stand up again. They say we're, or yeah, I think that's enough in the case, on framing. They say weigh extinction because life is valued. Consequentialism, however, there's extremely low risk of probability of the dissent happening. Also, it's, I'm going to get to this on midterms, but it's a popularity contest. You shouldn't evaluate it. They say any risk of mass loss of life means you vote negative, but that results in issues like this being put on the back burner forever because, we shouldn't do it now because it's time for the Congress, it's right before the midterms and the Congress is going to flip at least it being inevitably put on the back burner until it never happens. They say consequentialism is key, however, you should cross-apply your Vedelson card that you have an ethical obligation to reject genocide. You should... you have a moral obligation to stand up for genocide, even if it means that some people are going to get angry and there's a potential that somebody's going to get mad and pass some bad policies. Genocide outweighs any minute possibility of extinction according to our Vedelson card. TLPR. Ignore their link. We don't read Booth and McLaughlin in the 1AC, and they didn't read it either. Secondly, make them prove in-round abuse. They say H2, 1B, and H2A are untopical, but those are clearly topical things because they're they're literally immigration visas. And lastly, extend T as a form of policing. It tells the affirmative team you can only talk about Native Americans half the time when you're negative and you have to defend the state the other half the time. This is uniquely violent and bad, and it means that we don't get to talk about how the Tohono O'odham are prevented from crossing the border to visit family members and sacred sites. That's uniquely bad. They say SSD checks, but it doesn't because it means that we don't get to talk about forms of immigration within it. Also, extend that we're the largest possible act that can talk about Native Americans. We apply to 2 different countries, and we apply to, I think, over 100 tribes. Yeah, and it's like ridiculously large. They should be able to find some offense on it, and there's no reason that they can't argue this. Extend reasonability. Good is good enough, and extend the I extended the RVI, but extend that T's not a voter. Make them prove in-round abuse what they couldn't have run, and make them articulate it to their specific T, and not just. And also, extra topicality means that they should have their ground. Anyways, we get rid of that restriction. Executive counterclaim. This link's super hard to base. INA 289.1 limits J treaty. What?
Super hard to midterms.
Oh, sorry. Super hard to midterms. INA 289 limits J treaty rights to people with 50% blood quantum, and they remove this restriction, letting this law that's supposed to apply to Native Americans apply to literally everybody. This is extremely, well, I mean, if you want to go open borders, sure, but like this would really swing the midterms if we had complete open borders. Yes, this is brought up for 30 seconds at the end of cross-sex, and we're exploding it now, but you can give new answers if you want. Don't use the, what's the theory name? Whatever theory they run, I forgot the name of it. Don't let them use that as a cop-out to not answer this. They're literally opening the borders entirely. Extend the perm due counterplan. We do not specify Congress. We say that Congress would be the likely agent to do it, and they say severance. Oh, severance. That's the theory I was thinking of. And extend perm due both. Yeah, there's no reason that we can't get rid of this restriction and get rid of, and have the executive not enforce it. On to midterms. Extend the non-unique Gavin card that says there's a red wave now. Our evidence post-dates it's only 2 weeks old. You preferred over there 5 cards that are all older than our evidence because it's recently with the improved economy. Everyone's supporting Trump. They say natives like Trump. However, the Pocahontas thing, and like they clearly don't. Also, they say Democratic Congress solves the AF group Naslin group, and it's not specific to Native Americans. Also, it's abusive. It's a process counterclaim thing.
All right. What was it, 3-4 years?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Like the violation makes sense, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so it's like the code. Yeah, they don't decide what they do. So. Right, so. Are you gonna...
The counter